someone wants a roof inspection, but they do not want us getting on the roof, we'll use a drone. Also, the other thing you're not really seeing, but it's down here, is Justin's little one-wheel pint. He rides around in the neighborhood on it. He calls that his claim maker. He goes door to door and he rides out around the neighborhood and knocks on doors and talks to potential customers. So that's up there. Feel like we're in the Stone Age. Okay, so this slide is this is a picture of hail damage. I know it's zoomed in a lot, but what happens is when a hailstone hits an architectural shingle, what it does is it pushes the granulars into the fiberglass mat of the shingle, and this compromises the shingle, and it can lead to a shortened lifespan. And a lot of people always wonder, well, what's the big deal if a shingle gets beat up with hail? Why are the insurance companies paying for it? Well, this is why it can actually fracture the fiberglass mat underneath, and it will cause premature aging in the shingle, and that's why they replace that. There's just a job picture. You know, that's the tear off. We always tear off down to the deck so we can inspect the roof deck, and then obviously re-shingle. This was a project we did for Resources for Seniors, and we had to replace 65 sheets of OSB, Oriental strand board. That's that stuff that looks like that, not plywood. But nowadays, that's pretty much what all builders use when they're building homes. And that's just a before and after shot. You can scroll down. Yep. And there's our family pictures. So we like to go to the beach a lot. Yeah. Sorry for the funky slideshow.
Yeah.
But all good. Anyway, do you guys have any questions about what we do or how we can help you, or anything on roofing, siding, windows, gutters, exterior, anything you guys have run into?
Yeah, what kind of window do you guys install?
We have a manufacturer, and they're out of Western North Carolina. It's called Atrium. A lot of times we use Atrium windows. Yeah, but we can install any type of window.
Yeah.
You know, and
So you can source whatever the client wants.
we do sometimes we, you know, if they just want builder grade, it just really depends on the situation, because a lot of times, especially when working with realtors, they just want a problem fixed.
Yeah.
They're not trying to, you know, now when we do full window replacements and we're sitting down with a customer, they might have something specific they want it done in mind, and we can use any supplier. Any other questions?
You might have already mentioned this, but when you replace like a whole roof, do you have any sort of warranty?
Of course, yeah. So Certainty, through the manufacturer, they have a limited lifetime warranty, which is the first 10 years are fully covered, and then it prorates down through 40 years, which that can be upgraded to a 50-year. And our workmanship warranty is between 5 and 10 years, depending on what shingle and what roofing system they choose.
Go ahead, I'll let you put a presentation on that. I'll be trying to take sure it out.
Oh, okay. Oh, and I cleared it out, so.
Okay, I can get it back.
Pull it back up.
Yeah, I'll get it real quick. That's an issue now.
Oh no.
Use it out.
Oh, cool. Now we get to watch TV. Yeah, I messed up.
Just break it up. Excuse me, not using on TV. Okay, there we go. I just want to see it.
Sure.
This one did not be
What did you say again, or I live?
Apex.
Okay.
Yeah, our office is in Apex.
Awesome, thank you so much.
How many schools do you have?
Yes.
Well, we have subcontractors for every. We have two main roofing crews that we use, but then we have roofing crews that specialize in metal.
Yeah.
I just did a big cedar roof, or we just did a big cedar roof. I brought a crew up from Charlotte for that. So, when it gets to specialty stuff, you have to
Yes.
get the best of the best wherever you can find them. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Thank you, Chris. Thank
Yeah,
you.
man. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. I'll be in
Sorry
touch.
for the.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're
Fun,
fine.
fun slideshow there.
You were fine, you were fine.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some cards out there for you. Eat lunch. I hope it's not cold by now, but.
Thank you all.
All right, guys. Take care. Nice to meet you.
Hey, y'all. How we doing? Where'd Kelly go? Oh, there she is. Kelly, you gonna come up here and teach? Practice run for tomorrow?
No.
Awesome. Welcome, guys and gals. Today is buyers under contract. Now what? Thank you guys for hanging out. We're going to talk about what happens once you do get that buyer under contract and what the process looks like from that point on. I like to say once you get anybody under contract, that's when especially buyers, that's when the real work begins. I know a lot of times we get a bad rap that, oh, I don't need a real estate agent to help me find a house. I have Zillow or I have the internet, and they don't realize that really my job starts when we go under contract and to get you contract to close without any type of bumps and bruises along the way. At least bumps and bruises that you could see or know exist. I'll take those behind the scenes. So we know once we go under contract, we're going to work with the agent and the lender are going to work together with that buyer to get them to the closing line or the finish line for closing. Obviously, the lender's going to have a list of things that they need from that buyer. I always just tell my buyer that they need to be on top of things with that lender. The longer it takes for them to get them a document, you don't know if, that takes 3 days and, you have 3 different documents that take 3 days each. That's, pushing it back by over a week. You may actually end up pushing back closing. So I tell my clients, stay in touch with the lender, make sure you're getting them anything they need to make sure we get that loan underwritten and get us to the finish line. So who has had a buyer under contract? We had a couple. How did you keep up with that process? So you have your buyer under contract. You're like, okay, what do I do next? How did you navigate that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a template, a checklist, sort of and honestly, just being real, recently I started using ChatGPT to kind of draw something up.
Yeah.
That I could share with the buyers and say, hey, let's stay on this timeline together.
Yeah.
We'll check in weekly, but here's the hallmarks we have to hit.
So what my advice to every newer agent or any agent that's not doing it is checklists. No matter what you do in this career as a real estate agent, start checklists. Whether it's preparing for an open house, whether it's preparing for a listing presentation, whether it's buyer under contract, because these are going to become a visual to keep you up with what's going on during the multiple. If you have multiple transactions, if you have one, yeah, great, I know exactly what's going on. But if you have 3 all going on at different times, you want to be able to keep up with that. And then you want to develop that into a process. That way you have your template or, whatever you're using. I prefer paper for some reason. I still am visual paper. Even if I have checklists on the computer, I still just like having that piece of paper with all the checklists. I keep it on my desk and I say, okay, let me see what we have going on or what we need to have going on. And like I said, no matter what you do, I know we're talking about buyers under contract, but it's going to make your life a whole lot easier in 2 to 3 years if you have everything already in processes, because those processes are going to turn into systems, and then everything kind of is on autopilot then, because you know exactly what's going on in every transaction. You could share that list with the clients. I suggest a less intense version than what I have here. This is very intense, meaning everything to emailing each individual item, copy of the contract, due diligence check, copies, all that stuff. You could do a less intense one for your buyers so they can keep up with the process. I know there's actually apps out there. I think some of the brokerages actually offer that as well to share it with your buyers. It's easy to access and update. If you have the piece of paper, obviously you can update as you go. You could use any number of apps, checklist apps now. I know there's checklists I believe there's checklists in KV Core too. But just it makes it very easy to keep up with what's going on in your transaction. And you don't get any oh crap moments. I almost missed a final walkthrough one time because I didn't have my checklist going then. So, it was, oh, we have a closing today. We need to get the final walkthrough done. But this will help you eliminate anything that you're like, oh crap, we forgot to do that, or we didn't get that done, or it's 2 days before and we still haven't done that. So day one, well, my day one looks like when we get under contract. Well, you want to tell the buyer, obviously. I love calling the buyers. I try not to give it away. Hey, are y'all both there? I have to talk to you guys, or I'll text in the group chat. Hey, you guys, if you have a moment to get on conference call with me, I have some questions. I try to not let them know because I like to hear the excitement. It's one of the little things I get. We're going to notify, and then we're going to talk about the due diligence and earnest money checks. Now, a lot of this stuff, please, a lot of the stuff you hopefully have already talked about with your client. I don't want you to go under contract and then be like, oh, I need those checks. What do you mean checks for your deposits? So you're going to get those DD and earnest money deposit checks. I usually send out something called the 10 Commandments of Buying a Home, which is basically what not to do. No new credit cards, no financing furniture, don't go buy a new car, don't miss payments, don't do anything that's going to negatively affect your credit. A lot of times what will happen is buyers, especially first-time home buyers, oh, we just bought our washer and dryer this week from Lowe's. We got a Lowe's credit card. And you're just like, oh, I need you to call the lender right now because that may affect your ability to purchase this house now. So there is, if you just Google 10 Commandments of Buying a Home, there's plenty of templates out there. But like I said, it's mostly things that are going to negatively affect it. Confirm the closing attorney. Hey, are you okay if you use such and such who I always use all the time? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be perfectly fine like that with that. That 10th time, it's going to be somebody that they either use as an attorney already, or a family member, or somebody that they already trust. But we're going to confirm that closing attorney. And then, of course, we're going to send copies of the contract to the buyer, the lender, the closing attorney, everybody that's involved in the process. The lender is going to want certain documentation, and the closing attorney is going to want certain documents, but make sure you're sending all that over. And then I always immediately, because I work on a system of very strict 3 weeks for due diligence, and I'm always on the phone with that lender saying, okay, are we going to go ahead and get an appraisal ordered? I always want to make sure I stay on top of the lender to get that out of the way, because sometimes they will put it off, and we want that result fairly quickly for our buyer. All right. The good thing about due diligence is it is spelled out in your offer to purchase your contract on page 5 under 4B, under property investigation. It literally tells you, hey, buyer, this is all the stuff you should be doing when you're doing your due diligence. And we know that that's not limited to this, but it gives you a good template of what you should be getting done. However, please, there are several of these items that you could check off before going under contract. So what are some things that maybe in this list that you're going to want to maybe check off that list before you get a buyer under contract?
That's reviewing all that part.
Flood.
So we definitely can get a hold of the covenants ahead of time, register deeds of whatever county you're in. Same thing with zoning, governmental regulation, government compliance, flood, utilities and access, streets and roads being private, all that information you can get ahead of time. And please do that ahead of time, because you do not want to get under contract on a house and then find out it's in a floodplain and that was a deal breaker for your buyer. Or the big one that I'm getting a lot of now is high-speed internet, fiber internet. I think in Holly Springs it's called that Ting in Holly Springs. They're trying to finally make it their way out towards Fuquay now. But you have a lot of people working from home still. I have some people looking for land. They want to have farm. They want alpacas and all this cool stuff, have a garden, but the husband needs high-speed internet. So it's like, okay, we could only go out so far and get your land that you could farm on, but we also need the high-speed internet. So there's a ton of stuff in this list before going under contract you're going to do. Reviewing covenants, obviously, making sure that they can use the property the way they want. The government regulations, zoning compliance, making sure that there's not road construction projects nearby or a big shopping mall being built down the street.
My husband drives a semi truck. And at our old house, he couldn't park the semi in our driveway. They gave us one warning when he did it and then a $500 fine after that. So we had to change our lifestyle and it was a big deal for him. He had to find somewhere else to park his truck. And then drive his personal truck to that, which added time every single day.
Yeah.
Because at the time I didn't know any better.
Once again, this is stuff, covenants that may be deal breakers, whether or not it's in a flood zone. Those are all conversations I'm hoping you're having with your buyers up front, obviously. So we're talking about reviewing documents and assessments. The other thing, making sure there's not an assessment in the neighborhood that they may have to pay for. I had that actually happen on a townhome community where it wasn't an approved assessment, but they were getting ready to replace the roof, all the roofs in the townhome community. The seller got off because they hadn't approved it yet, but they were literally going to approve it the following month. So my buyers were going to be on the hook for $5,000 that following month. You could call the management companies, find out that stuff about assessments. Zoning, plan construction, assign schools, flood zone, utilities and access, public or private roads. All right. The one thing that we cannot do ahead of time is what? Inspections. Obviously, we're going to do a visual inspection when we're walking through the property, probably point out things to that buyer that are going to come up during inspections, but obviously we're not going to do a full-on inspection. Please, 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 I lost the first sheet of it, but please, please, please use the professional services disclosure as your guide. Your clients are going to be signing this. They are going to be reading it and saying, oh, we didn't do this certain thing. Why didn't we do that? So you want to make sure you're talking, and obviously, when should you have talked about this professional services disclosure with your client to begin with?
Prior to going on the contract.
Even prior to that. Because it's still on the buyer agency agreement, isn't it? The sample copies? Yeah. So this is a sample copy that they should be getting when you are signing that buyer agency agreement and telling them, hey, we will be signing this and the purpose of it. The real estate commission wants this to be kind of what they call a living document. They want you to be using it throughout the transaction, although in practice, that's not always easy to do. So I highly, highly, highly suggest you make sure you're going over this and all the different services and possible inspections that you are going to be doing. I ran into an issue one time, and let me back up by saying we are living and breathing in real estate every day. So I think that a lot of times we get caught up in the moment and we assume that our clients know certain things. Well, I ran into an issue where I had to have a 30-minute phone call with a client on a new construction home. It was a weird situation. Her dad was buying it for the son, but the sister was involved because the dad was really old. But long story short, I had to have a 30-minute conversation explaining to the sister why we weren't doing an HVAC inspection on a new construction. Because basically she saw this thing that I sent over that I had marked waived for a lot of things because it's new construction. And she was like, well, I never told you we didn't want to do that. So make sure you're having the conversation up front. Use that as your guide. Because like I said, they're going to read through it and they're going to ask questions. Oh, what, we didn't do this radon thing. What's this called? What is that? So make sure you're using that as a guide.
Survey is a big one.
Survey.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Set expectations up front about the inspections. First of all, especially if you're working with first-time home buyers, let them know it is going to be a long, scary report. Inspection reports are long. People equate that to being scary, like there's a lot of issues with the house. No, they're reporting on the whole house. They're showing you good things and bad things in that report. So make sure you're preparing your agent or your buyers up front that it's going to be long. There will be defects, even on new construction. And this is not to generate a punch list for the seller, but rather provide current condition of the home. A lot of people also get confused, feel that the seller has to fix everything. We're making sure we're having that conversation up front. That yes, there is an opportunity to negotiate based on the inspection findings. However, they don't have to fix anything. So we're just letting them know, hey, first and foremost, this inspection is just to give you an overall overview of the condition of the house to make sure it's still something you want to purchase. Then we can get to the negotiations after that. The other thing is make sure you're telling them they do not need to be present for the home inspection. A lot of times they're like, hey, when are we going to meet the inspector and what time's the inspection start? I said, well, we don't meet the inspector until afterwards to go over the findings, to go over any major defects, things they want to show you in person. And there's two reasons. First of all, the inspector does not want anybody following them around because it'll turn a 2-hour inspection into a 4-hour inspection because the buyer's gonna be like, oh, well, what's that? Or, hey, what are you looking at there? Or whatever. But I also tell them that if you are following the inspector around, asking them questions, there's a good chance they can miss something because they're trying to focus on doing the inspection, that they have somebody in their ear, obviously trying to answer questions. They may overlook something, they may miss something. So we're saying, hey, we're going to let the inspector do their job. We're going to meet with them at the end and go over all the findings. So what are we suggesting? Obviously, we're suggesting everything that's on the property disclosure, or I'm sorry, the professional services disclosure. That would be that would fit that home, obviously. Things like septic. If it's on public, it's not going to have a septic tank. If it's on public, it's not going to have well. So, go over each one of those. I always say, hey, it's my job to recommend all of these. It is your job as the buyer to decide which ones that you would like to do. So I always tell people, I will not help you buy a home, at least without a home inspection. I don't even want to help you out because it's just a liability waiting to happen. But of course, home termite, HVAC, septic. What is everybody seeing? It's back and forth. It seems like a case-by-case basis. I don't know, you guys are newer agents, you haven't really had that much exposure. The one thing with septic is there's two different ways to inspect it. Obviously, they'll inspect it, but they can't fully inspect it unless it's pumped. That makes sense. So just make sure that you're letting your buyer know that we may try to negotiate for the seller to have it pumped. I get quite a bit of pushback on that. So just know that that's an issue out there when you are dealing with septic, that, the septic company can't do a full-on inspection unless it's empty, and somebody's got to pay to empty it. I always tell the sellers so, you guys get rid of it, but they don't always enjoy that. They don't always agree. What are some other stuff I'm seeing now? This is kind of like the old school list. Some stuff I'm starting to see that's maybe not on that list. Mold and air quality, I'm seeing a lot of more. Lead paint, which is a whole different thing, obviously, on the houses built prior to 1978. Yeah. Sewer scopes now are becoming a little more prominent. Do you guys know what a sewer scope is? So basically, they'll take a camera, put it down your sewer, and make sure that there's no blockages, no tree roots or anything going through the through the line. And it basically is looking from, because if you're in a public utilities, the city is responsible for the pipe up to your property, and then you're responsible from there all the way back to your system. So I had one couple that bought a house off Timber Drive. They didn't get it. I didn't even know what sewer scopes were back then, but it was something that you would have never found this without doing a sewer scope. So, but it was tree roots growing through their sewer pipes. Any other inspections you guys have heard of that are popping up? I know we talked about radon, well water testing with radon.
Moisture in the walls,
Mm-hmm.
with the sensors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big now. They can check the attic, the crawl space everywhere.
Yeah. One of my inspectors has infrared
Yeah.
thing. They could find leaks
Yep.
and stuff in the walls. What was the other thing? With well water. So the other thing that you're probably going to come across, if you are on a private well and say it's a flip home, it's been sitting for 6 months, 99% of the time that well is going to test positive for bacteria because it's stagnant water sitting. It's not being used. Very easy to fix, very easy to treat, but it freaks buyers out because they're like, oh, this water has bacteria in it. And then you talk to a well water company and they're going to tell you, well, 90% of the water in North Carolina has some type of bacteria in it. We want to make sure that the bad bacteria is not in it. And like I said, that's from it sitting stagnant. You'll see that a lot in, like I said, in flipped houses, where, nobody's been using the water and it's been sitting stagnant. Survey. So I listed survey last, and I think I talked about this a little bit last week. The survey, well, let me back up. Can you request repairs after due diligence period is up?
Yeah.
You can request repairs on day 1. You can request repairs on day 30. The due diligence period is just something that puts the earnest money deposit into effect. Now, in a perfect world, obviously the seller and the listing agent is going to want everything done and the repair negotiations wrapped up before that due diligence period is over with. And obviously the buyer agent as well, because we want to make sure that we're not going to get our buyer stuck in a situation where they're going to have to walk away and lose that earnest money deposit. The survey though, the survey say, due diligence is passed and the survey comes back and there's an encroachment on the survey, no matter what. And we talked about this last week a little bit, the seller has to fix it because the offer to purchase states that the seller is giving you a clean title and an encroachment on a survey, meaning maybe a fence is over the line or a shed is over the line, it clouds this title. So it no longer makes that a clean title that seller is going to convey. So that's why I listed survey last, is because that's one of them things that even if it comes in after the fact, even if you've done all the repair negotiating and got, this taken care of and that taken care of, and then they offered, a concession for that repair, something comes out on survey, day 30, we still go to them and say, look, the seller's going to have to fix this because, like I said, it clouds the title.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I showed a house last week that an agent remarks that said that the neighbor's fence was encroaching
Now,
on the property.
it's a very simple fix. All there has to be is an agreement. Both parties have to agree and they file an easement with the county and it's over and done with. It actually happened to my house. I'm a real estate agent. I bought a house with a fence and I did not get a survey. And then the neighbor sold 2 months later and that agent called me up. Mr. Bonham, did you purchase this house a couple months ago? I said, yes, I did. Well, we got a survey done and the fence is encroaching on your property. And I said, with a red face, well, I'm a real estate agent too. And I probably should have got a survey done before I purchased. But a long story short, it was, our row of houses all share fences. We all have fences. A tornado came through many years ago, tore the fences out. When they put the fence on, they put it crooked across the line. So it was 6 inches this way on my property, 6 inches that way on the other property. We just had to get an easement filed. So are they still teaching you guys and gals? And I can't remember if this is something that they taught in pre-licensing or if this is something that was just taught by brokerages. Are they still teaching you to give 3 options for vendors? Meaning, hey, these are 3 home inspectors that I
feel like that's good practice.
That's what I did.
With anything, quotes.
Yeah, that's what I did.
It's
Yeah.
roofs.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I have my go-to inspector.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for my inspector, I don't give them an option of 3 inspectors. I have my team and I usually say, hey, you have a home inspector that you'd like to use. Oh, no, I don't know anybody. Do you mind using the home inspector that I know, like, and trust that I've worked with for years? The way we were taught in the beginning was, hey, you have to give 3 options for everything. And I'm like, okay, I can't even find 3 termite companies or 3, or whatever. So I've kind of narrowed it down to, hey, this is my team of vendors that I use. If you're not happy with them or you want to use somebody else, that's fine. But these are the people that I know, like, and trust and have never let me down.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of got wishy-washy because, as a new agent, you don't know 3 home inspectors. So then you're just basically throwing darts out there and saying, okay, let me pick these 3 home inspectors out and just give them to the buyer and let them pick them. So I just wanted to know if that's how they're still teaching. Now, to your point, anything that involves something that could be different priced, like contractors or getting the work done, I'm always like, get as many as possible, because the one time I was getting estimates for getting trees removed in my backyard, the estimates went from $600 to $3,500 for that. So anything like that, yes, I will suggest. But when I'm talking, my home inspector or my HVAC company or my septic guy, I've got my team. So I don't really give them a lot of options. I say, hey, these are the people that have never let me down. Repair negotiation. So we got all inspections done. We got all those nice reports in front of us. We're sending them over to the buyer. They're freaking out, of course, because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this stuff's wrong with the home. We need to back them up. We're going to go over those inspection reports with results with the buyer. Hopefully, we were already on site with our buyer, with the home inspector, the day of the inspection. So anything that was like big deal, they would have seen up front. Obviously, HVAC, radon, termite, we're not usually hanging out with those inspectors to find out the results. We usually just get those reports back. We need to find out if anything in those reports are deal breaker items, meaning if this does not get taken care of, you're not going to buy the house. So we're talking major things: roof leak, cracks in the foundation, HVAC not working properly. And we're going to start with those items, because what I find out is a lot of times a buyer will make a list this long and it'll have the HVAC repair, but it'll also have fix the wobbly ceiling fan, or, you know, just a bunch of minor stuff. And I try, and you really, what you don't want to happen is you don't want to send this big list over and then choose all the minor stuff and then cross out the big stuff. So you want to make sure that your list doesn't have a lot that's going to overwhelm the seller, but is also fair and includes items that really are going to be the material fact things that are going to, things that would have changed your buyer's mind about making that offer to begin with. So the big question is, are you sending that repair list to the seller or the listing agent, or are you asking the seller or listing agent for a credit at closing? Usually a case-by-case basis. Sometimes the seller or the buyer just wants everything done before they move it. I don't want to mess with having to hire a contractor after closing. I don't want to have to mess with that. I just want the house to be like I want it when I move in. So that's when we'll send the list of repairs over to the listing agent. I prefer the other side, which would be getting the concession, because then we control, or the buyer can control, who's going to do that work. I don't want Uncle Joe, who used to own an HVAC company, coming over and fixing the HVAC, because that was one of the issues. We want to make sure it's done by a licensed contractor in a workmanlike manner, I believe is the actual verbiage, meaning professionally done.
And that's why you have to be so specific when you're sending a repair list too.
Yes, yes. That's the other thing. Please make sure when you are saying, I think it's something off the top of my head.
License.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, as far as I want that fixed.
Yeah.
Dig in, ask questions. Well, what does fixed mean to you? Does fixed mean you want a whole new one? You want that one replaced with something new? Or you just want that one fixed? And that's the way you want the verbiage to read in your DDRA. You want to be very, very, very specific, because I've gotten, there's a good one here. I had a seller, I'm sorry, yeah, I was on the sell side. A home inspector noted that trees were touching the roof. So if you're at a home inspection, anytime an inspector sees bushes up against siding, any trees or any shrubbery touching any part of the house is going to get written up on a home inspection. Bushes, because it's not allowing airflow to, you know, dry off the siding when it rains. It could lead to mold, could lead to stuff like that. Obviously, branches touching a roof could damage the roof. Inspector, they didn't even say repair anything. They just sent over the DDRA with the numbers on there. So inspector said, item number, whatever, roof, branches touching the roof. Okay, cool. So we took, my seller literally took a rake, and it was like a twig touching the roof. Knocked the twig that was touching the roof, boom, that's done. The buyer wanted the tree trimmed. They wanted the branches above the roof cut off. Never said that. So when we got to the walkthrough and they're looking, well, you know, this inspection said that there was a branch touching the roof. You guys didn't take care of that. And I said, are there any branches touching the roof right now? She's like, no. But this buyer wanted, I said, well, that's not what you said. You sent over a number that said the tree was touching the roof, and we took care of that problem. The inspector cannot come back and say the tree's touching the roof anymore. So just a good example of be very, very, very specific. And you also don't know, because you don't know in your mind on a repair may be one thing, and in your buyer's mind, it be completely different. So
I like the credit at closing.
yeah, credit to closing is great because, like I said, we're controlling who's doing the work. Obviously, you may have to chase down some estimates just to, to justify the number that you're asking for. But on the flip side, just as I said, there's some buyers that are like, I don't want to mess with contractors. Who else doesn't want to mess with a contractor?
Yeah.
The person that's packing up their house, getting ready to move to a new house, they don't want to worry about, scheduling contractors come through. So I have found in my experience, instead of sending over a 10-item list to fix, if we just send over a thing that says, give us $5,000, the seller's like, oh, that's it. And I don't have to repair anything. Sign off on it. And that's all, it's out of sight, out of mind for the seller at that point. So I've found that asking for the credit, a lot of times it'll work because it makes it easier on the sell side too. Don't forget about the appraisal. Remember in the very beginning, I said that the lender is going to be talking with that buyer about all the stuff they need to get done. One of the things is going to be the appraisal. Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to go through repair negotiations and get everything tied up in a nice bow. And then the appraisal come back $10,000 less. And then we have to go back and try to renegotiate even more with that seller that thought they were done negotiating. So we want to make sure we have all our information before we start to go through negotiations. Does that make sense? So your appraisal, all your inspections, survey. Like I said, the survey is that one that you could kind of just leave out there because if it comes back, they're going to have to fix. Some other stuff that I hope that you have already spoke with your buyer about. Home warranties. Home warranties are, hopefully you've already had the home warranty talk once again, because it's part of the offer mentions home warranty. So it's going to be something that you've already going to want to talk with your buyer about. Obviously it's something that you could ask for these days. A couple years ago, you couldn't ask for anything. Now you could ask for a home warranty to be paid for by the seller. What I do is I tell my buyers, home warranties, insurance, loans, that's all out of my wheelhouse. There's people that are out there that's their thing. So I will give them information for a handful of home warranty providers, because the first thing I will tell you is every single home warranty company is different. They all operate differently and they all cover different things. So what I don't want to happen, and I let them just reach out. I'm like, hey, here's 4 companies, call one, call all 4, and see if there's any that, and this is if they want to purchase a home warranty. And this is also could be them finding out if they want to purchase a home warranty. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you to sit there and say, hey, you guys should get a home warranty. It's going to cover that HVAC if it breaks, because it may not. And we don't want to overpromise something through a home warranty company that may not cover that. I will tell you that home warranties, a lot of the time they prorate their coverage. For the example I will give, I had a home warranty on my first house that I purchased, paid for by the seller. HVAC was about to kick the bucket because it was, when was this, 2018? This was 32 years old. HVAC system was 32 years old in that house. So I got the yeah. My HVAC guy at the time kept coming over and putting Band-Aids on it, duct taping it, doing everything they could to keep it running. Because I told him my plan was to keep it running until my home warranty was about to be up. And then we'd use the home warranty to replace it. I thought I had the master plan. I, had him come over. He got in touch, sent over the report to the home warranty company. The home warranty company said, great, we're going to give you $200 towards that replacement of that HVAC system. $200. Because they prorated it. Because, hey, we're not going to give you full amount to replace a 30-year-old system. So just know that there's tips and tricks that they use, and it may not always be as good as it seems. So I always have them reach out themselves to make sure that, if they want to get, to make sure I'm not overstating or promising things that they're going to cover. So, buyer's duties: keep communication up with the lender, as we said, respond quickly to the requests, remind them about homeowners insurance. If they're, 9 times out of 10, they probably have an insurance agent already that they're using. I still encourage them to go out and get quotes because you could save some money.
Yeah.
Utilities: we have a great concierge service, Utility Connect, that we use through EXP. I think that may be the same one that, I know that Keller Williams had one as well, but most of the brokerages now have a beautiful concierge service that they will take care of getting your buyer's utilities transferred, and they negotiate for you. So a lot of times you hear about new customer rates and stuff like that. They'll negotiate those and get you the best rate possible. Forward the mail. Make sure you're forwarding the mail from the post office. And these are just little things, like I said, that I kind of forget about because I'm not responsible for those things, but you want to make sure that that buyer is keeping up. So it's on my checklist. Closing time. The buyer is going to receive that CD all to 3 days before. Make sure you review before getting to the closing table. Your concessions, deposits, etc. The last thing you want to do is get to the closing table and tell everybody that that looked good. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, oh crap, the due diligence deposit's wrong on here. And then all of a sudden they've got to rework everything. And wire fraud warning, wire fraud warning, wire fraud warning. Please have that conversation. It is on almost every document that they sign now. EXP has a separate document. I had a buyer last month. I know some of y'all heard the story. He had $300,000 that was missing for 24 hours because for whatever reason, I asked him if he verified the numbers. He said no. I had told him to verify the numbers, but he still didn't. But luckily, the money was found. It went to where it was supposed to go. But wire fraud warning, I get so scared, guys.
I would not be able to sleep.
I get scared when people are wiring $5,000, let alone $300,000. But like I said, and it has happened to me where I've had clients get spoof emails looking like the closing attorney saying, "Hey, we're gonna. I think it's best if we went ahead and did the wire transfer a couple days early, so it's here. Here's the instructions."
How do they know what attorney?
Because your email got hacked.
Yes.
So basically what they'll do is they will hack an email and they'll look at all the contacts in that email. Sometimes they'll send it to make it look like it comes from you. Sometimes they'll make it look like it came from the closing attorney. I mean, it's as simple as what they'll do is in the email address, they'll change a O to a 0, or they'll change an L to a capital I, and you're none the wiser. And it looks, I saw the email. The only reason she didn't do it is because I told her, if you get a random email saying something about a wire transfer, don't do it. Send it to me. That's the only reason. It looked like clean from the closing attorney, had everything, the headers. I mean, it was amazing.
They'll call the attorney.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. And don't call the number, maybe listed on a random email either.
Yeah,
Look
no.
it up yourself.
Well, that's what happened to me. So, I confirmed with this guy, said, hey, did you, confirm the numbers? Well, the problem was he was an online banker. He wasn't going to the physical bank. So my instructions are, when you're at the bank, before you wire the money, call the lawyer. So because he was online banking, he wasn't going to the bank. He was just in his living room. He then finally said, oh, these are the numbers, send them to me. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Those are the numbers I got. And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, what if I got scammed too? So then I had to freak out.
Yeah.
But that's how it happens. So make sure your email's secure. But as long as you're having that conversation with them about, hey, don't wire off money without calling the law office and saying, hey, this is the number I have in front of me. Is this, confirm all those things. So I believe that's all I got. Any questions? Did we learn something? Got some good nuggets. Good. I appreciate it. Yeah, my biggest advice is anything you do, whether it's working with buyers under contract, getting a listing ready, start documenting everything you're doing. It is going to make your life a whole lot easier, and put that into a checklist. So then next time you have a listing coming up, you pull out your listing checklist, you're like, oh, order signs, oh, order riders, order photography, all your stuff. And it's all right there in front of you. And like I said, you will avoid any oh crap moments. Any questions? Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. That's all I got. What do we got next week? Oh, top producers panel next week. April and I think Sharon Evans is going to be here. And Beth, are those the three?
I saw the post yesterday, that's why I was.
So thank you guys. I appreciate y'all hanging out. I hope it helps.
Yep.
Are you excited about teaching tomorrow?